Well, good morning. It is June 19th, 2020. I'm in a field. My name is Chris DeFonso. I'm the field crops entomologist from Michigan State University, and behind the camera is Ricardo Costa, who's one of the extension educators in southern Michigan. And we are almost to the Indiana line in a field of wheat that the grower called about. It looked okay for a while until he came out here and realized that it looked like something was feeding, and a lot of his leaf material is gone, and sure enough he has a huge infestation of armyworm. Armyworms fly in from the south. They don't overwinter here, so they were carried up on weather fronts and kind of rained out, and they really like grassy kinds of things. So grasses in the ditch banks, they would like to feed on corn, and they really like wheat. So this infestation probably resulted from a flight about a month ago, and there was egg laying. And when the armyworms are small, they're not very apparent. The grower could have been driving by and not even realize that he has the infestation. But now that they're big, they're eating a lot. And insects tend to eat the most food in their last maybe 1 or 2 larval stages, and that's what he has now. So one of the concerns, of course, is that with wheat is that you want that flag leaf to be present. And there are a few plants here that still have a flag leaf, but on most of them, it's been eaten to some extent, tattered, or it is almost completely gone, as we have with this one, or gone entirely. So in some parts of the field, there are no leaves left. It's completely stripped. And that's one concern, but luckily this grower is far enough along that he's kind of got some milkiness here in the grain. He's probably got most of his grain fill that happened from that flag leaf. So maybe the flag leaf isn't as important anymore. There's a little bit of photosynthesis out of this stem, and he's got a lot of heads out here. The bigger concern, though, is on the ground there are numerous armyworms, the threshold being 2 per square foot. I'm looking down and I'm probably seeing in some places 8 to 10 per square foot. And there's soil cracks and they're down in there too, so I can't see them. And when they get to that level, they begin to get up onto the head, and you see a lot of these heads now are missing their awns, so they're desperate and they're starting to feed on that. And they don't seem to like the grain particularly, but what they will do is they will clip heads off. So now we have stems with no head at all. Why do they do that? Not 100% sure. Sometimes you don't see it in fields, sometimes you do see it, and this field is just starting to get to that point where I believe that the worms are just starving and they're getting desperate. So they're clipping that head right off. The head is falling to the ground, and if I look around, I probably can find a few heads. Right now, oh, there's one, and that head falls off. And this is a little small, and this is nothing. So the growers put all this money and time into achieving this yield, and it's not even being eaten by the armyworms, it's just being dropped onto the ground. Maybe they're cutting to get some of the plant juice, maybe there was a little bit of a leaf there, and then they kind of cut around it to take that last bit of leaf. But regardless, that's what we're most concerned about, because it seems like he's got the majority of his yield here. He just needs to get it to the drying point, and he can take it off the field. So he has decided that he is going to come in the next few hours and actually treat this field. Further back into the field, there are more flag leaves to protect, and so that will be fine. And then up in this front area, what he's trying to do is stop this clipping of heads from those vengeful armyworms. Okay, so here's the ground surface in this armyworm infested field. I have a couple pennies here so that we can see size of some of these armyworms. They're hiding out on the ground here, and if you move the residue aside, we can pick up some of the larvae. Some of these may be 5th instar, which are as big as they're going to get, but some are maybe behind, maybe a 4th. Now remember, the threshold is 2 per square foot, and as I dig around in here, I'm finding more and more and more. They don't like the light very much. They're trying to hide from me. So here they are, very active now that I'm bothering them. And I can put a penny on there for scale. Now there are some bigger ones, even bigger, out here. The other thing that I'm seeing, oh, here's a big one. The other thing that I'm seeing on the surface are these clipped heads. So this is again our yield loss to this grower who's already put the time and effort into this field. And there's more larvae coming out of this field here. The other thing that I see, even if you don't find larvae, you oftentimes will see the excrement, the poop that comes out of the caterpillar, and that's called frass in entomological terms. And if I dig around in here, oh gosh, here's another one. I'm probably up to 7 or 8. In this other hand, you might be able to see is a little bit of dirt, but this kind of powdery residue, that's the frass. There were little pellets that were excreted by the insect. An entomologist might see those and know that caterpillars are there. A farmer probably would never see that. In a way, it's a little bit like fertilizer, but it's the fertilizer origin is this grower's yield. So there's probably 8 to 10 per square foot in this area, and this is very typical of this field in this area in Hillsdale. We are along the edge of a road with an armyworm infestation in the wheat. If you were driving along and the wheat looked fine, what else could you see that would clue you in that something is going horribly wrong? And the first thing is, this road margin, all the grasses have been stripped. And notice how all the other weeds, the broadleaf weeds, the ragweed and the Queen Anne's lace and these other weeds aren't even touched, because armyworm do not like these other sorts of foods. They are sitting on the plants in some cases, but they're not feeding because these don't taste good to them. They're just not a host plant. But they've already wiped out all of these grasses. And as a result, they're desperate. So what are they doing? They're trying to get out of Dodge. And if they head into the wheat field, there's nothing for them to eat. So now they're moving across this dirt roadway. There aren't a lot of them crawling. They're just starting today, but you can see them with your eye. But in another day or two, if this got bad, you would be able to see this from your truck as you were driving by. And I'm pretty sure if this was a tar road, you'd see the spots where the smushed armyworms have been run over by cars. They're a little harder to see on this dirt road. And finally, the field across the road is soybean, which is a non-host. And they've gotten over here, and what they're doing is they appear to be hiding out under some of the corn residue in this field. So you pull the residue aside, and here are, oh wow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 perhaps sitting here. They're hiding out from the sun. It's a little cooler in this area, and they will try to perhaps nibble on this soybean. A lot of the damage that's here is probably slug damage, but this is a non-host. So for this, they're going to starve here. It's probably a dead end. And for the soybean field, this is not a sprayable situation because they're just going to starve.